Hey, what's up? My name is Chris, and welcome to Coding in Public. In this video, I'm going to walk through 6 different user sites that have been submitted for my review or comment. I don't pretend to be an expert here. This is just going to be kind of a live walkthrough, kind of casually walking through your site, mentioning things that I like and some things that might be improved. I'll probably focus primarily on accessibility, on some CSS stuff, maybe just some general suggestions. So I hope it's helped you and helps you kind of think through stuff you might do on your own site. First of all, I just wanted to thank everyone for submitting their sites for review. I had a lot of sites submitted for whatever reason that YouTube just hates it when people add sites in the comments, which I understand. Probably most of the time that's just spam or whatever. So it was hard to see everyone's. So I tried to go back through and see anything that YouTube had hidden or deleted for me and grab a few from those. All right, well, let's go ahead and start with Jesus's here. He's from Ecuador. First of all, great job in the World Cup, Jesus. Your team has been super impressive, but that's not why you're here. So let's look at your site. First of all, I love these little design touches that you've got the blue here, behind your image, in the scroll bar too. Nice little touch there. One thing I'd note here is you've got, it looks like just a straight gray gradient here and below here. Since you've already got the blue hue, I would just add a little bit of that hue to the gradient, and that way it feels a little bit more native to the whole design. Let's see. Let's look at these right here. These should have ARIA labels, and so let's just check that out to make sure they do, since they don't have text involved or included in them. So let's come up here. ARIA labels. Let's see if you got them. Yep, you got them. Okay, cool. It may be worth, I know these are kind of known brands, but it may also be worth just popping up like visit me on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter, or, those kinds of things, so that as I'm clicking, I know what this is going to do. I mean, I know it's the Twitter logo, but so that may not be entirely necessary because they're such well-known brands, but generally speaking, make things accessible for both your cited and unsighted users. And so sighted users can say, okay, I know what this is going to do for me. Let's see, down here, I love that you can scroll through these. That's cool. If I were going to come and look at your site for review, if I was going to hire you or something like that, I would scroll through these myself, and that would give me a pretty good sense, and I wouldn't even have to necessarily open up the demo if I know what it looks like there. So I'm not sure what you're using to do that, but I like that. Down here, a good list of skills. See a nice little blurb about yourself. It may be worth having another picture here or something like that, since this is about you. And then you've got your contact form. So pretty basic site, but I like the simplicity. I like the little design touches as well. The little wave might be a little too frequent for my liking, but I think it's a good touch. So let's try really quickly just tabbing through your site. If I'm up here, okay, so I can tab through here. That's good. All right, so I'm actually getting tab-focused events on everything. That's really important to make sure that you have access to those. So great job. Let's look at one more thing, which is if we click accessibility here in Dev, in Chrome, the Chrome Dev tools, you can see that I'm getting a list of everything here. Now in this case, I've got a navigation up top, and I've not really got one down below. Let's see if any of these down below. So this is just calling this content info. So this is really another nav. So this would probably be worth inside your footer, maybe having a nav that wraps all of this, and then giving it a label. So you see here, there's no label for this. Obviously, it's a paragraph, so not a big deal. But if you made this a nav, you'd want it to have a label like secondary nav, and this one could be primary nav. These are all sections. You've got main content, so a lot of really good things there. Jesus shows me that you kind of know how to lay out HTML. So anyhow, I hope that's helpful for you. Let's go ahead and jump into the next site. All right, so over here, I've got Fullerin. I think that's how you say it. Looks like Next.js and React. Let's see what you got down here. So yeah, it looks like you're using Next and React. Okay, so for the site as well, in addition to just being a thing you like. As I refresh this makes me think though, looks like you've always got 3 coming in here. So if you know that's the case, I'd make a little skeleton loading animation where you've got maybe just like this lighter color gray, that's a picture here, and obviously just like a filler picture, maybe even just a div, and it maybe animates a little bit. These are going to just be lines of text. Obviously, there's nothing, you won't know what it's going to be yet till you fetch that. But if you already know that you'll have 3, rather than having this whole jumping experience, just have a little skeleton loading animation. Light mode, dark mode, I like that. Let's check that you got an ARIA label on there. Where we're here, ARIA label toggle color mode, perfect. Again, that might be something you put a little pop-up, but I think that's pretty obvious what it does. Let's tab to stuff, all right? Now, I'm getting like a double tab situation. Tab, 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 tab. All right, so let's see what's going on up here. Looks like you've got, okay, so I would not do this. You've got a button inside of an anchor link. So you've got an ARIA label on the button, which is fine, but what you're doing is an anchor link should be for redirecting people, and you are redirecting people. Buttons are more for on-page interaction. So don't combine the two like that. Just have this text inside of here, and you can give this the ARIA label dashboard or whatever. So actually, if it's text, it should read that out anyhow. So in other words, you could just, let's edit your site right now. Edit as HTML. Let's just say dashboard in here, dashboard like that, and then enter it. So there you go. It should look just like that. And now when I come over and I tab to it, to that one, it just goes straight to it. Now you might want to change the styling on that. Obviously there's no hover state anymore. My guess is you have like a button component and you already had some styling done on that, but maybe just pass in a different tag or whatever as a prop. And then depending on the prop, you can show either a button or a link, but they shouldn't be both at the same time. Let's see, anything else I know in here? Astro, awesome. Svelte, I really want to learn Svelte one of these days. Let's check your nav down here below. Looks like it's not a nav. So because this is a nav, I would definitely make this a nav tag right here, and then just make sure you label it secondary nav or something like that. Let's also check, let's see. There's something called the CSS overview. So let's open up that panel and just do a capture of your site really quickly. And this gives you some accessibility things. So it looks like most of your text is great. I'm not sure what's going on here, but something is totally hidden. Hover the icons. So whatever this is hidden altogether. I'm not sure why it's not showing it to me. Skills. Okay, so it looks like maybe, do you have this intentionally hidden? I'm not sure, but it looks like that's totally hidden, so that's good to know. Let's come back to the CSS overview, see if there's anything else we might notice that you may want to look at. This looks like it doesn't like this contrast as well. I think everything else looks great. Looks like you've got vertical alignment applied. This is probably something, okay, yeah, that your CSS library is doing for you. Some of them used to do that. That's okay. All right, next, let's look at Kajana's site. Sorry if I'm butchering that. Let's refresh and see your site. I was thinking that was an animation, yeah. So you get this nice animation going. Let's check out the network tab and see what's happening in the background. So I'm going to refresh, and that pulls in. So I'm assuming, so I'm not getting anything loading right now, and then it all loads. So I definitely wouldn't do that. So what I would do is, while everyone's waiting, I'm expecting that by the time it loads, it's immediately ready. Here's what happens if I were to, like, let's go fast 3G and redo it. I'm coming here, I'm waiting, I'm thinking, okay, they must be doing something in the background so that it's all going to be ready. And then I open it and it's not all ready. Your images aren't in here yet. Looks like one popped in now. So if I'm on a slower connection, I'm expecting that all that's going to be done by the time I am done watching the animation. It's pretty long. That's one other thing to think through. So all I would do is throw that splash screen up, and then while it's up, be loading everything else in the background. And that way, as soon as it shows, at least the above the fold stuff is visible immediately. The other thing is, every time I refresh, I'm getting that animation. And assuming that it's been cached, I don't need you to load all that stuff in the background, and it becomes a frustration to, like, go back to your home page, and you don't want that for people. So I'd find a way to save that, maybe in local storage, and then the next time somebody comes back to your site, you can say, hey, they've already been here. I'm not going to go ahead and show them that animation again. So that's one thing to think about. All right, let's try the tabbing. Let's just make sure that everything is working here. So these are tabbed. Let's see. This doesn't have any text, so it should have an ARIA label. Let's check that out. All right, so a couple things here. It's a figure. It doesn't need to be a figure, and it's a button, and I don't think it takes you anywhere. It doesn't do anything. So yeah, I would make this a link. It doesn't need to be a figure, and then inside the link, just have the SVG. You can have this as your H1, but basically by naming it as an H1, you're telling Assistive Technology, you're telling Google that this is essentially like the main thing about your site. And KR doesn't tell me anything, so I'd maybe make it this or something like that right here. That could be your H1, but I'm not sure that's helpful here as an H1. Let's see, anything else I'd mention about that? Nothing that I can see off the top of my head. Let's go ahead and look at your accessibility tree. So here we are with this H1 heading. All right, now we come into this main area, and everything inside this main area should be a section or an aside or something like that. It should be inside of something. And here I've just got a freestanding paragraph, a freestanding heading. So I make this all like a header tag perhaps. This is kind of the header area, or maybe just a section tag. And then notice how all these sections, they don't have any kind of ARIA label on them, so I don't exactly know what it does. If instead I come in here and let's get rid of this accessibility tree, and I say something like ARIA label about me, or something like that. Now if I come back over here and I do this again, I have this being called out as a region, and it says it's about me. All right, so if you just use a section tag, it doesn't actually do anything for you accessibility-wise. It's just a div, essentially. That's my understanding. You have to add an ARIA label or do an ARIA labeled by and point it to an H2 inside of that. Now, when I come down your site here, this should be an H2, and it is because it's the kind of the title of the next section. This should be an H2, and it is. Good. Now, these should probably be articles, and this should be an H3. All right, because essentially what you're telling it is a hierarchy of things on your site. So if I were to scan this with Google or assistive technology or whatever, I'm going to want to see, okay, here's the general table of contents of your site. Now, if I close this out again, I come inside here, these are just lists, which is fine. That's not bad. It could be a list as well. These should not be H4s, so these should be H3s if they're anything. And then you've got all that in there. That's fine, but I would make these H3s. So you want H2s as your main header sections, H3s as kind of the subsections below that. So a couple things to think about there. All right, some stuff you've built. I like that. Let's see. I'm guessing this is what this takes me to. Yeah. Stuff you've built, front-end mentor challenge. Okay, so you're listing off these. Again, my eye's not gonna be drawn to this first. So if you're wanting to show off what you used, I would make this somehow a little cleaner. Maybe you could just have this ringed. So let's see if we can't do this. Just a design idea here. Come inside here. Oh, this is all one thing. Okay. Well, if this weren't, you could do something like this and have like border, maybe like 2 pixels solid, and then whatever your like red color is, which I don't know what that is. Let's check it out. Let's steal this, and I'll come back here. We'll drop this in here, something like that, and then you could do like a border radius of 100 V max to make it full circle, and then maybe padding of 0.2 m. Maybe needs more than that. Let's do 0.2 and then 0.8 m, something like that on the side. So you can see how that draws that out a lot easier for me to see. Okay, and if you had little pills for each of those, okay, I know exactly what they used for this. So that's an idea design-wise, that versus this down here, and it wouldn't take much, just a little call out. We could do a lot more just kind of talking through different things on your site, but overall I like the look of it. I'd probably make this whole card clickable. Oh, I guess it is. All right, but I guess you've got these in here too, so that's something to think through how that works. But I'll leave that to you. It looks like that takes you there. I'm not sure the difference between these two right here in that case, but maybe it's just because they both point to GitHub and this is just your general profile. No? I don't know. All right. Well, I'm not going to click through that right now. Down here, I like this little interaction thing. This should, again, be tabbed properly. Maybe we come in here too and just check. So yeah, these should probably be tabs or buttons that have roll of tab. I think it's roll of tab. I've done a video on it before, and it's because I had to figure it out myself. So you might want to look into some accessibility things there as well. Those are just a couple of things to think through. Overall, though, I really like the stuff. Hey, nice little touch down here. I really like these kinds of things where they're like popped up this way. Yeah, that's cool. All right. Well, great job overall. Those are a couple things to think about when it comes to accessibility, kind of how headers work. But overall, I love your site. All right, this one's a little bit different. It's like a 3D modeling site or something. So I like the fact that it doesn't look like a traditional portfolio. It's got some kind of cool stuff to it. Light and dark mode. And you can grab this and spin this around. I don't know how to do this at all, so I think that's pretty cool. Let's also just double check. Okay, so when I'm trying to tab through your site, I can get to these, but I can't actually get to your projects, your skills, or your about. So that's something to think through. I don't know if you have like a Okay, so you've got an on-click. These are just lists, so they should be links if they're going to take you somewhere. Even though you're like moving down this way, just make them links and point them to like an ID of like skills. And this could be just a link, or I mean, they can be a list, and then inside here, maybe this could be a link like this with href that points to skills, and it will do the same thing for you. And then you could say skills like that. And then when somebody clicks on that, it would drop them down to your ID of skills, which it looks like this doesn't have an ID. But if this had an ID of skills on it like this, then if they click on this, it could take them down to there. All right, something like that. So they just hacked up your site. Let's refresh. So that's something to think about. And then I can't tab to them because they're not keyboard accessible because they're just LI tags. This also isn't super easy to see that I'm focused on it. So you may want to come up with some custom focus visible states for that. This is just a paragraph. That's fine. Let's think about kind of your H2s. Oh, I'm already seeing here H3. So you're using your header tags like the last site did to kind of style stuff rather than thinking about them semantically, and then decouple the styling and make that styling separate. So maybe over here what you can do is have an H3 that's a class like this, and that way you can have an H2 tag with an H3 class, and the class is what styles it, but the tag is what semantically sets it. So you want one H1 and then H2s for each section. So let's check your H1. So you've got lots of SVGs that have H1s. All right, so but only one H1 tag. That's good. Let's also check. Let's do H2 like that. So you've got 4 sections here, and they all have H2. That's good. Let's check your H3s. Okay, so it looks like the H3 is where we start to fall down because you're using it more for styling than anything else, especially like here and here. So that's something to think about. I do like all this. I love the kind of the subtle shadow here. I think that's cool. About you, nice picture. I like the look here. These should probably be like either a list items or articles. And that way it calls them out as kind of a list of items. So that's something else you might want to look into. But overall, really great job. Let's also check down here. This should be some kind of nav. So yeah, this should also be a nav probably down here. Maybe even this whole section, or at least this section, since you're navigating to this, and maybe just give it an ARIA label of like social links or social navigation or secondary nav or something like that. So that's something else to think about. But great job overall. Hopefully that's a help. Okay, next we have Trevin. I think Trevin mentioned that he was trying to get a job as a junior dev. So looks like you've got a lot of skills under your belt here. I think for some of these, I probably wouldn't call out all of these just because if I'm looking over this, I want to get a sense of kind of what are the main tech like things that you're good at or you use. And like I'd expect you to know Git and NPM and GitHub and even Vite and Parcel for Cell. Like these are just hosting platforms. VSCode. I mean, I think as an employer, I would assume that you'd use VSCode or something else and that you should know your code editor. So I don't know that I would do all of this. But like Firebase, Bootstrap, Material, that's fine. Tailwind, that's fine. Next.js. So a lot of these I think are fine. But once you get here, it just looks like you're trying to list stuff. So I would just stick to kind of the basics and be good with that personally. I like the timeline. I think this is probably a little bit too long. Usually I do something like this on my sites. Let's see where I come in here and maybe, let's just add some HTML here. So at the bottom of this, I'm just going to add a style tag. And I'll usually do something like paragraph and then do like max width of 60 characters, something like that. And then that way, this is nice for line wrapping. Obviously, you'd have to change your design a little bit, but making somebody read all the way across like 2,000 pixels back and forth is just going to get difficult on their eyes. So find another way to style these. These could just be little cards or a little tab structure or like alternating with like a timeline going down the middle. But I think reading all the way across is a little difficult. Let's see. I like the different applications here that you can kind of see them and preview them. I think that's important. Sometimes people just show like a cover image that's not the actual app. But here I get a sense without even having to open stuff up. Hey, this guy can do quite a bit. This is pretty cool. I like this styling or whatever they might happen to say. Since we're already here, let's go ahead and check. Let's see. Let's look inside here. Make sure that this has some kind of ARIA label. It does. Maybe say like go to GitHub page or something like that, but they've got the ARIA labels. That's great. Let's tab through everything as well. So you come here, you get straight to here. All right. So I skip past all that. I guess there's nothing really to link to there, so that's fine. These could have some animations or something when you hover. That might be something else to kind of mix it up a touch because everything's pretty static. But I like the general sites. You also probably want it to where if they go to click on this, they can click straight through to the project because I would expect that. And maybe even here as well. And then this, obviously, this GitHub link would just go to your GitHub, but pretty much everything else on the card would go straight here. So this image here, and then this icon as well, same kind of thing. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Let's check out some accessibility stuff while we're here. So let's see. So yeah, it looks like we don't have any of these things in sections, so that's another thing to think about. You do have skill image on all these. I'd probably list what the skill is because otherwise it's just saying there's a skill image. So it's going to read out like image, skill image. In fact, let's go ahead and see what that does.
Skills, skill image, image. You are currently on heading level 2, HTML.
You'll notice there that what I'm getting is it reading out skill image, image, which is not helpful.
Skill image, image. Heading level 2, HTML.
And then here I'm getting a heading level 2.
Voiceover off.
All right, so let's shut that down and let me turn this off and talk through a couple things. So number one, if this is going to just be repeated right here, I would just make this an empty alt tag or do aria hidden. Same thing. Either way, that should work. So just do alt with an empty string, and that's the same as doing aria hidden. That's my understanding. Then this can be the thing that's read out. And here, if this is an H2 right here, then these should be H3s. Because again, you have to think about your site as like a structured thing, like a table of contents. So your main titles, again, are H2s. These are all H3s. These images shouldn't have tags on them or shouldn't be listed if they're not going to do anything. So you can just say CSS, JavaScript. As they list through these, they'll just want to know what those are. So these could be H3s. It could also just be like a UL tag with a list of items, and that way it's grouped as a list. So that's something to think about as well. All right, well, hopefully that was helpful, kind of thinking through that, especially from a web accessibility standpoint. But I think the rest of that looks great, and it looks like you've got some pretty cool applications. I might come and look at these a little bit later. All right, let me jump over this way. We've got Abdurraf. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure how to say your name, but let's see. I'm guessing this is intentional. Oh, yeah. So I got like a little snake thing following me. I don't mind that. I like it because it matches the rest of your design, that pixel kind of art. In here, you've got this purple color. Looks like you've got like an MP4 or something playing. What is this? Let's check it out. It's a cover, container, an image. Oh, it's just like a large PNG that's scrolling when you hover. Nice. All right, I don't mind that. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I wonder what that does on mobile because you can't obviously hover. So yeah, you just don't get anything in mobile. That's okay. All right, back over this way. Let's open this back up. To me, this purple color doesn't quite match everything else. It looks like once I go back to desktop, I have to refresh to get the scroll bar back. So you could do like a resize observer or mutation observer to figure that out and show that one way or the other, but that's probably not worth it. In here, you've got some text that's kind of hard to read. We'll look at some accessibility stuff in a second with text colors. That might be helpful for you. I like that you call out individually what these things are here because I get a real clear sense of what those are. I think I would probably make those like little tabs or something like that down below. So maybe you have a section down here where it just lists those out as like a pill, like stuff I used for this or whatever. All right, let's look at the CSS overview. I'm going to do a capture overview, and I think it's going to catch some of these contrast issues. So like, yeah, that's really hard to read, and it calls that out here as well. I mean, that's a little easier to read for me at least, but it doesn't pass any of the checks. Let's see, down here, we've got a bunch of different font sizes, so it may be worth just paying attention to how your font sizes are laid out and making sure that you have consistency across your site. Fioremano, Poppins, got lots of different fonts coming in, so that's another thing to pay attention to. You really only need one, maybe two fonts for the site. It's not a huge site, but the rest of that looks fine. All right, let's see. Anything else here? I like you get a little preview, like GIF of these things. That's really cool. It probably would be worth just to make these a little bit more performant if they are GIFs. To make them MP4s that just autoplay on hover. And that way you save a little bit when it comes to bandwidth. This, I don't mind this right here. I like the design here. So maybe these are the tags you could just use up top here. So maybe put those below. The other thing is you've got this dark purple here, like I mentioned a second ago, and then this purple doesn't super match it. And I know you're kind of transitioning from up here down below, but you've got purple right here. It'd probably be worth using the same purple everywhere. And then you could also do the same purple in the sidebar here for the scroll bar, for like the thumb. Anyhow, I hope that is helpful for you. Hey, thanks again to everyone for submitting your sites. I hope this was helpful for you. And, if you just watched this as well, that you found something helpful when it comes to just looking at your own site with this kind of a perspective. Well, I will catch you in the next one. Thanks again for watching. Happy coding.